Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are breaking down one of the absolutely most chilling dichotomies in American criminal history. We're looking at the life and crimes of a man whose horrific spree across 7 states relied entirely on just one utterly terrifying weapon. And that weapon? His completely trustworthy, perfectly normal appearance.
Yeah, he was killing people the entire time. 30 women murdered. And the whole twisted plan literally hinged on women trusting him the very second they saw him. Throughout this explainer, we're going to really contrast that facade of his seemingly perfect life with the incredibly brutal, hidden reality lurking just beneath the surface.
Section 1. The Perfect Human Mask.
Okay, let's dive right into this. His name, of course, was Ted Bundy. And before the world knew what he truly was, mothers literally pointed to him as the prime example of an ideal young man. You know, he was an honors student at the University of Washington. He volunteered at a suicide crisis hotline, which, just think about that for a second. He was actively talking people back from the edge. He worked on political campaigns. He even had a girlfriend who loved him completely and thought he was literally the most thoughtful guy she'd ever met. So this wasn't just some flimsy cover. It was a meticulously crafted shield.
Section 2. A calculated hunting method.
Now, what's really interesting here is how his process operated with such surgical precision. He literally weaponized human empathy. First, he'd study a location. You know, a busy university campus, a park, a shopping mall, and he'd just wait. Then, step 2, he'd fake an injury. He'd often wear a fake cast on his arm or a sling just to appear totally helpless. Step 3, he would approach a lone woman and simply ask for a little help carrying some items to his car. He had this really easy smile and he knew exactly how to use it. And then, step 4, the attack. The moment a woman got close enough to his car, well, that safe, easy smile was the last normal thing she ever saw. And his broader strategy? It was devastatingly effective. In January 1974, the nightmare really kicked off. Young women like Karen Sparks, who was beaten in her basement, and Linda Healy, taken right from her bedroom, were among 8 women who just vanished in Washington state over 6 months. No bodies, no crime scenes, 0 witnesses. Then, by the summer of '74, he moves to Utah for law school, and guess what? The disappearances start up there. Fast forward to 1975, he's driving out to Colorado on the weekends, and women start vanishing there too. He was covering thousands of miles, actively exploiting those state lines to keep different law enforcement agencies from ever connecting the dots.
But, occasionally, the mask did slip. In November 1974, an 18-year-old named Carol Duranch was approached at a Salt Lake City mall by a guy posing as a police officer. When she got into his car, he suddenly snapped a handcuff on her wrist and pulled out a crowbar. But incredibly, she fought back, threw herself right out of the moving car, and survived. That brings us to August 1975. It actually wasn't some master detective that finally caught him, but just a routine traffic stop for erratic driving late at night. The officer looks inside and finds a crowbar, rope, a ski mask, and handcuffs. That one single stop linked him to Carol Duranch's kidnapping, and that's what led to his very first conviction.
Section 3. Capture and audacious escapes. Okay, so now he's facing murder charges in Colorado, and he decides to manipulate the system by representing himself. This is crazy. It granted him access to the courthouse law library, so on June 7, 1977, he literally jumps from a second-story window and runs straight off into the Aspen Mountains. They caught him 6 days later, but he absolutely didn't stop there. By late 1977, he's secretly starving himself to lose weight, spending weeks meticulously widening this tiny little gap in his cell's ceiling. Then, December 30, 1977, he crawls right through that ceiling, drops down into the empty warden's apartment, changes into street clothes, and literally walks right out the front door. 17 long, agonizing hours passed before the prison guards even realized that his bed was just stuffed with books and blankets. By the time they figured it out, he was long gone.
Section 4. The Final Spree.
When you look at the raw data from the horrific Chi Omega sorority attack, it's almost impossible to comprehend. The date was January 14, 1978. The duration? Under 30 minutes, right in the dead of night. The sheer scale of this violence. He moved through 4 rooms. 5 sleeping victims were beaten with a log, and 2 of them were strangled. But here's the crucial detail. He left deep bite marks on victim Lisa Levy. He had no idea in that frantic half hour, but those savage bite marks would eventually be the exact piece of evidence to seal his fate.
So just think about this contrast. At night, he's committing unimaginable violence, brutally attacking 5 women. But the very next morning, he is calmly attending university classes. He literally walked right past the crime scene tape, past the police cruisers,
right past the reporters swarming the sorority house, and nobody even looked at him twice. His terrifying ability to just switch that perfect human mask back on immediately after such absolute savagery, well, that's exactly what made him so incredibly dangerous.
3 weeks later, he kidnapped and murdered a 12-year-old girl named Kimberly Leach right in the middle of the day. But thankfully, his run was finally coming to an end. A month after fleeing that sorority house, a Pensacola police officer pulled him over at 4 a.m. in a stolen car. He tried to run, got tackled to the ground, and then just sat in the patrol car refusing to speak for nearly an hour. Eventually, he just gave up. He looked at them and simply said, "I'm Ted Bundy."
Section 5. Execution and unanswered questions.
Even when he was literally fighting for his life in court, he somehow maintained this charming facade. He represented himself again, actively cross-examining witnesses. He wore a crisp suit, remaining perfectly calm, totally precise. He completely baffled the onlookers. I mean, women in the public gallery actually struggled to reconcile his handsome, put-together appearance with the absolute monster he was accused of being. He even married his loyal wife by exploiting a weird legal loophole, declaring their marriage official in front of a judge right there in the middle of the courtroom. Yet, despite all the courtroom theatrics, he was handed 3 death sentences.
30. So he spends 10 years on death row, right? And when his final appeal was denied in 1989, he spent his last 4 days desperately trading information for a little more time. He officially confessed to 30 murders, but the investigators who sat across from him, taking notes, giving him absolutely nothing in return, they strongly suspected the real number was much, much higher, possibly well over 100.
He was executed in the electric chair on January 24, 1989, while crowds literally cheered and sold bumper stickers outside the prison. But get this. In April 2026, DNA testing confirmed that a Utah teenager he had flatly denied killing back in 1974 was in fact one of his victims. To put that into perspective, that means more than 3 decades after his execution, the true scope of his crimes is still emerging. The full list of what he actually did, we still don't fully know.
During his final interviews, he revealed something that is just deeply, deeply disturbing. He talked about the moment when a woman looked at him and decided he was safe. He actually told investigators that the brutal act itself wasn't even what he enjoyed the most. It was the approach, the casual conversation. That exact split second of assumed trust was the very thing that made him feel the most powerful. And honestly, that leaves us with this haunting reality that no execution, no amount of true crime analysis has ever been able to fully explain. How does a person look that safe?
How does a predator so effortlessly just fake human warmth? How does a person smile that easily?
How does someone sit across from you and seem so completely, so convincingly, so perfectly human when they are absolutely not? It's a terrifying vulnerability in our own perception, and it's one that we all just have to live with. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and remember, keep questioning what you see.
True Files Archive.